I guess all in actuality, you could pretty much call this a continuation of the first video. The first speculation video I did earlier this month, and as a matter of fact, I'll put a link in the description bar so you can go back and then watch this video again, and you can get the full story of everything. Now, last time we talked about the dates, we talked about the Unmasking the Horror Tours, and we talked about that really swank Halloween Horror Nights 26 package at Sapphire Falls. Now, I'm going to talk about a couple of more things. First off, being the big three rumors that we're hearing right now, one of which makes me exceedingly happy with joy, and one I've been predicting for a while now, and the other one completely out from left field. So, I don't know why I made the baseball motion, just made sense in my head. So, that being said, we're going to go into that, and then we're going to finish with a little bit more of what Dr. Jimmy may or may not be alluding to, because you never know with him. But if you want to know what I'm thinking about what he may or may not be singing about, you're going to have to wait till the end of this video. But don't worry, just like with the last video, I'll be helpful and give you a timestamp so you can go right to it, so you don't have to wait for that information if you want that first, or if you want to listen to this first. Here we go. So the big three right now, the first one being a movie that I've been predicting to come to the event since last year, and that is the very successful 2013 James Wan, now classic, The Conjuring. It brought back paranormal horror, and it brought it back with a vengeance, did great box office, and made a lot of fans happy that this was back, that the genre had returned. And it was bringing back James Wan, who had a very successful time with the Insidious franchise. Now, this movie was custom-made for Halloween Horror Nights, and utilizing the paranormal exactly like it's intended to be utilized. Now, there's a couple of things that you can talk about with this. Number one, obviously, being Insidious worked so well on both coasts. 2013's Into the Further in Hollywood, and last year's Insidious Maze in Orlando and then Return to the Further in Hollywood made the Insidious franchise custom-made for Halloween Horror Nights. Now, we've seen stuff like this before, but this is the IP that could possibly bring it back. Now, this has been requested by fans for a while now. Obviously, since 2013, people have been wanting this, so it's only been a couple of years, but still, people have been wanting it. And if you watch the new trailers that exist, there are a lot of things that you just can imagine walking into a house and seeing right before your eyes. Like, obviously, there is a moment in the trailer which is really awesome. Then all of a sudden, all the crosses on the wall just turn upside down. And, of course, the old man jumps out of the wall, and it was amazing. But the thing is, I can imagine this at Halloween Horror Nights. That's a perfect scare. And I can imagine this in a tent. I can imagine this in a soundstage, and I'd love to see it in a soundstage, and I think if it does happen, it will go to a soundstage. Now, the movie comes out on June 10th. It is the Enfield Poltergeist, and it is basically the continuation of Ed and Lorraine Warren from the first film. And it's bringing Patrick Wilson and Vera Farmiga back to their characters that everyone knows from the original film. Now, obviously, this is a hint to Amityville, and this is something that could potentially tie in with an Amityville connection down the line, maybe, but we'll have to guess and find out if that's going to be happening or not. Amityville has been pushed to next year, so I don't see that happening, but The Conjuring, obviously, was very successful, and this movie looks to be just as good based on the trailers we've seen alone. Now, this was a terrifying movie when it came out, and it's custom-made for Halloween Horror Nights. I truly believe that. Now, with June 10th, that also means it could be a ripe day for an announcement. I can honestly see this happening. And I don't know at this point, because there's a lot of rumors going around that John Murdy may have hooked the great white whale and possibly be bringing a property that we would want to see on both coasts. And if that is the case, then maybe we won't get The Conjuring. Maybe The Conjuring will be the Insidious of this year. It'll go to Hollywood first, and then it will be in Orlando later on down the line. But it's anyone's guess if that's going to happen or not. It's just a rumor that's going around, and probably the strongest of the rumors, even though I'd like the third one to be. But we'll get to that a little bit later. The second one is one that came absolutely out of nowhere. Completely out of nowhere. So, Christopher Ripley wrote a book and you can check this book out on Amazon. There's actually a link below in the description bar. It's called The Halloween Horror Nights Unofficial Story and Guide, the unofficial story and guide behind the world's greatest Halloween event. And he also has a website, which is, HalloweenHorrorNightsUnofficial.com, HHNUnofficial.com, and I'll put a link in the description bar below on that one. It'll be in the thanks like we always do here on the videos. Now, he's using his website a lot more lately, and a rumor apparently came across everybody working for him and working with his website, and basically said that there was a very interesting property from the 90s that is actually potentially coming to Halloween Horror Nights this year, and that is Tremors. Now, if you're unaware, Tremors is basically natives of a small isolated town defending themselves against strange underground creatures who are killing them one by one. Thank you, IMDb. And stars the man who could be connected to everyone, even this guy right here, Kevin Bacon, Michael Gross from Family Ties, Fred Ward, and of course, Reba McEntire, who I have absolute past with because I performed with her when I was a kid. That's a long story for a completely different time. And this movie basically had several sequels that went direct to DVD and direct to video. 5 of them, actually. So there were 4 that were after the original film. Some of the cast sticking around, and actually they had, the final one was just last year. There was a short-lived television series that ran for about 13 episodes. That was in 2003. And this is a very interesting prospect. Well, first off, the big thing here would be to potentially right the wrongs from creatures. If you go back to Reflections of Fear, in the creature's house, there was a creature in the house, literally, that was too big and couldn't be fully utilized. Maybe this is finally going to right that wrong. And number 2, there is a big, heavy want for puppetry in Orlando now, just because exactly how well American Werewolf in London and Alien vs. Predator worked in the past, and how I think something else could possibly work later this year. But again, that's purely speculation at this point, until we get some more concrete details. Now again, let's talk a little bit more about this puppetry. Now the puppetry, I will explain the creatures in this house. Now, they're first called graboids, alright? They're basically like underground sandworms, and that's the first stage. When you're first stage, you're a graboid, and yay. And then when you go to the second stage, you spout 2 legs, and you're walking here, and you're now a shrieker. And then the third stage, somehow, some way, you get a tail that shoots fire, and wings, and now you are referred to as a lightning bird, or let's call them what they refer to them in the movie, an ass blaster. Yeah, random. In the 4th film, The Legend Begins, there was a juvenile state of the graboid that was also called a dirt dragon. So these are all puppets you can use. Now granted, you have a lot of various opportunities you can use here. You can use scares from below, obviously, with the graboids coming out. That would be awesome. Or shriekers coming from above. Or you could just have all sorts of various craziness going on. It'd be extremely gruesome, and it'd be really entertaining. And plus, there's this rumor going around Horror Night Nightmares forums right now. Again, link in the description bar below. And that basically tells us there could possibly be a Western-themed house this year. And with the success of Western-themed houses on the West Coast, obviously, and also on the East Coast just the same, I think that it would be ripe for time for a Western-themed house to appear. But I would think that that would be more of an original concept, and not necessarily an IP, even though Tremors does fit the IP criteria of being a classic, and in this case a cult classic, which would be a house from the past, based upon a IP of the past. Not necessarily a house from the past, but an IP from the past. So, another thing, it's a universal picture. Yeah, no red tape to go through. All the rights are right there, literally right there. They can just grab them, just like the graboid. Did not mean to do it that way. Alright, so could Tremors be coming? I think The Conjuring is coming, even though I have a little bit of, worry that there's a possibility that Hollywood might just get it, but I still think it's both coasts. Is Tremors coming? It would be just in Orlando, and I think it'd be rather interesting if they could pull that off. But I think the puppets are going in a different direction this year, to say the least. Alright. Enough of the fun stuff. let's talk about another card trick. I mean, no, not a card trick. Same thing I did last time. So, to start this Halloween Horror Nights playlist, I did a video that was basically talking about my first experience at Halloween Horror Nights in 2012. Yes, Halloween Horror Nights 22 was my first year. I know what you're thinking. Oh, and you missed a lot of the great years. I'm like, I know I did. I really wish I could have gone back and actually saw that stuff. And thanks to stuff like Jack Presents 25 Years of Monsters and Mayhem, I was able to get a little bit of a taste. But I want more. And I'll tell you right now, what I really want is something to come back from my first year. Now, what came back from my first year would be something that I've wanted to see return ever since it left the first time. I wanted another shot. Now, if you know me, you probably know that I'm a big fan, if you will, and of this IP. And when it comes down to it, people can be IPs. So yeah, I'm a fan of this IP, of this brand, and I always have been. Have been ever since I was a kid. And it's been a lifelong goal to finally meet them in person. And being able to try and Halloween Horror Nights and get shut down, I always wanted another shot. With the Urban Legends brand, I thought they would get an Urban Legends or BS potential maze down the line. Didn't happen. Maybe the Urban Legends brand has been put on the shelf permanently. Maybe we'll see it again. I think this year we might see it again, but that's another story for a different time. So, let's talk about this. And I gotta make sure not to get my hopes up too much about this, because this is a dream, obviously, for me, personally. I know a lot of people like what they like at the events, and so do I. But this is a selfish dream I really want to see. Like something I think could possibly come again another year, because last year wasn't good enough. Now, close enough, but not good enough. So, if you don't recall, 2012 nuked Las Vegas in 3D. Basically, the storyline of the maze was the fact that they were doing the magic bullet, the bullet catch, and instead of using a bullet, they were using a ballistic missile, and yeah, they kind of nuked Las Vegas, literally. So, it was in 3D, had a lot of bright colors, there was, like, really cool gags in the house where you actually can, like, trick people that were behind you, and, like, make the floor shake and everything, and, like, shock them. It was awesome. Loved every second of it, obviously, because I'm a fan. So, that was another story for another time. But then I saw this, and I have to mention it, because it's me we're talking about here. Chris Ripley's at it again. And he starts doing some detective work. And I saw that same thing too, but I didn't think anything of it at the time. So, obviously, A&D are flying around every which way, every once in a while, different members of art and design, to try to secure the properties for the event. Now, from a source, from a person, I found out that apparently there were some A&D members that were in the West Coast recently. One of which being the big man on campus, Michael Aiello, and apparently he also had some time to take in a show at the Rio. And this was mentioned on Twitter. Now, not by him, of course. Well, he actually did say this because HHN Rumors was actually tweeting, and this came to that conversation. And this conversation involved Ron Jeremy, and Ron Jeremy possibly hosting something at the event. Could we see Ron Jeremy this year? I guess we're going to have to wait and find out. But then there was, a couple days later, there was a picture that was posted on Twitter that said that the aforementioned people that I have yet to mention were at MCO, and they were in Orlando on business. A couple days after. Kind of interesting, huh? Again, can't get my hopes up too much for this. And further inspection reveals that, unlike most of the shows running in Las Vegas currently, the dates past July aren't quite available yet. Could be just that they're not up there, but could it be? There was a survey that was sent out, they're supposed to be confidential, by the way, that everybody apparently knows about, and that was mentioned on there. Plus, they have a show called Fool Us from the UK that is also brought over here to the US, and it's going to be premiering its third season on the CW. So, yeah, I have to say it. The third big rumor for HHN 26 is the return of Penn and Teller. Yeah, this would be incredible if it actually happened. And this would be incredible given the fact that 2012 seems like so far ago, but still, 4 years ago, I started Halloween Horror Nights, and 4 years later, I get a chance to right the wrongs, if it actually happens. Now, my friend Drew from Orlando United posted an interesting hypothesis. He posted on the Orlando United message board forums, which, link in the description bar below. And this is an idea that I have had, but he kind of built on it, and I will give him full credit, like I am right now, basically saying that a lot of people are jumping at this being another house, or potentially being a show, oh god, but his idea was completely different. What about a scare zone? Little mini stages, magic tricks gone wrong, maybe on select nights, Penn and Teller being there on a bigger stage. He was thinking like a size of like the Caretaker stage because it was a little bit bigger than the other Icon stages because of what was being done on it, because obviously it was a long instead of you know what I mean. But still, I was thinking potentially that ginormous stage where Jack was performing. But that's another story for a different time. Like he mentioned, like for like the knife throwing, obviously from The Carnage Returns last year. I got a frog in my throat. And also, they could possibly, like, saw someone in half, and it could be, like, this character that does the chains, was in the Clown Saw Drill team last year, and he also played Bicycle Girl with The Walking Dead in 2013. That could be a possibility. So, yeah, that was Drew's idea. Now, he also mentioned another thing. Why would you give up guaranteed money at a, most of the time, sold-out show at the Rio for time at Halloween Horror Nights to do a show? Don't have a venue big enough. Use the Music Plaza stage would work, but you need that for queue space, or could we possibly use something else? Terminator, I don't think is big enough, and I don't necessarily think this should be a standing room only show. That doesn't make much sense to me. But to capitalize on that, I went to the forums myself and I gave my ideas. See, the thing is, I could see this being an upcharge. It was mentioned a couple of times on the boards that they could possibly do this on Saturdays only, or select Saturdays, and make people have to pay for tickets, because obviously the Frequent Fear tickets do not allow Saturdays, even Frequent Fear Plus, because it allows Fridays, but not Saturdays. There needs to be a ticket for Saturdays. But the thing is, if you want to pay the extra money, you can see Penn and Teller. And the thing about it is, I was thinking you could possibly do it in another soundstage. It's not being used for Halloween Horror Nights. Kind of like how they set up Grinchmas, or maybe when Jimmy Fallon is performing, running his show in Orlando for that time. Kind of like that. But the thing I'm thinking about is another house, which is a possibility. Teller seemed to be really, really enamored with Halloween Horror Nights. Penn seemed like he was having a great time, and I can understand that. Like I said, the Urban Legends or BS house, I was thinking would be an amazing idea. And I had the idea that I said on one of my Popcasts last year that I think it'd be really cool if they put Penn and Teller in charge of Run. Could you imagine going through Run with Penn Jillette's voice booming in your ear telling you it's like, nope, that's it. Oh my god, it's there. It looks like somebody found one of Teller's booby traps. It would be incredible. An even more sadistic game show like Run, like even more worse than Run, even more sadistic than Run. And on select nights, yes, they could put Penn and Teller in the house like they did with Nuke Las Vegas, which I think they would do if they used that. Now, Drew's idea is awesome. I love it, and I thought this could be a really good house as well. But it could work on both mediums. I think it could definitely work, using the Icons HHN template, of course. And I would use, like, either two things. You could use shock magicians. People, obviously, are in Vegas. They have their own theaters, and they're well-known, bring in some of the ones that are not so well-known, and they could put them on those stages, and they could kind of like build and build and build, and on the big stage, we have a well-known magician at the very end. Like I said, I've been talking about the amazing Jonathan coming to Halloween Horror Nights for several years. This would work if you wanted to do a standing room only show with magic involved. Not sure if that would work, but roll with me here. So, let's go with this idea. Let's go with this magic gone wrong scare zone. Alright, well first off, let's just say maybe magic is not what's going wrong. Maybe these magicians are really, like, real wizards. They're really wizards, Harry! And, that was a horrible impression, I'm sorry about that. But maybe they're really weird. They're really wizards, and maybe that means that they're killing people for fun. They're just stuffing people out on purpose, kind of like what the director does. I could possibly see that, but even more like an extreme, because they could be using a stage magician as a cover-up just to kill people. It could be crazy people, it could be more like Psychoscarabee. That could work as well. So, let's say if they would do a show, like 10 to 15 nights of the event, maybe 10 nights, so make it real special throughout the entire event, the opening night, closing night, and time in the middle. You basically would do, like I said, all the opening acts, all the shock magicians on both sides, freaking you out with the shows just like they did last year with the icons, and at the end, Penn Teller. Or they could use their Fool Us brand, and they could do it kind of like what they did with Face Off. And they could tie it in and use magicians that have successfully fooled them on select nights to populate this area. I can't get too excited about this. My God, I'd be so happy if it happened. Penn Teller coming back to Halloween Horror Nights would be absolutely outstanding. And finally, in the last video, I was mentioning that Dr. Jimmy has been singing again. Now, I'm a completist, as you well know, and even when the list kind of eked out last year, I still went and completed the rest of the performances, and I'm going to do the same thing this time. Now, last time, we were talking about 1 through 4. Now I'm going to start and talk about 5, and we're going to go all the way to the end. So, a couple things I need to say. Doris Day had the 5th song this time around with Que Sera Sera. Whatever will be, indeed. Yeah, there's no need to go psycho or get all wrapped up in a frenzy. I mean, we're all just strangers on the train after all. I mean, Douglas Pipes did a version of Carol of the Bells, and, you know, that was quite a legendary treat from him. You know, it wasn't a trick at all. I mean, could have been still coming down the chimney, but you never know. Arky Blue did something called Daddy's Sick Again. It was the 7th one. Made me wonder, was there another song that was a little bit more appropriate? A little Hank Williams Jr. maybe? A little family tradition? After all, it's the law. And then Tiptoe Through the Tulips came around. No, not very insidious this time around. I'm thinking this is another version. Maybe a version that would kind of tie in more to, I don't know, cockroaches and their longevity more than anything else. The most interesting of these being the final ones. Now, potentially, we have the song, which is We'll Meet Again, which is Peggy Lee and Benny Goodman's version. And it either tells me that Sunny Days might just be coming along to the trenches, or maybe, just maybe, there's something cursed, or might be cursed, that just might spin its head right round this year. Yeah, the last one's a personal favorite of mine. The Bee Gees, I Started a Joke. Nah, couldn't be. You know, this is a cruel trick. I mean, Doc, you're a dear friend, sir, but this is just BS. You know, I can't get my hopes up, though. It could just be a director's cut. That's going to end another edition of Halloween Horror Nights Rumors and Speculations here on the Popcast Network. If you like these videos, then there's a lot of things you can do to tell me you like these videos. You can follow me on Twitter at @SirOwenDisney. You can follow my channel and my brand, the Popcast Network, on @Popcast Network. Check out our Facebook fan page. It is Sir Owen Disney Pop, or you can search for Sir Owen Disney and the Popcast Network, and that's on Facebook. You can check out Halloween Horror Nights Orlando on Twitter at @HorrorNightsORL. Check out amazing Halloween Horror Nights related forums at Horror Night Nightmares and Orlando United. I would say right now that Orlando Informer would be in the list, but you can still check out OrlandoInformer.com, but the forums are going bye-bye, so check out their Facebook group if you get a chance to. Some great Halloween Horror Nights related sites. Obviously, I'm going to start out with the members of the Popcast Network, and they do run HomeMadeHaunt.net and FirstClassHorror.com. Great friends of the network, HHNCrypt.com and HHNLegacy.com, as well as HHNYearbook.com, HHNUnofficial.com, and my friends from the Catacombs of Halloween Horror Nights podcast at Neozaz.com, link in the description bar. Check out the Halloween Horror Nights panel from the Popcast Network. We are the elite. And you can check out Homemade Haunt, Tyler and Andrew, links in the description bar, as well as Cameron, Ian, Travis, Aaron, and Aaron. So obviously we're talking about First Class Horror and Mr. Entertainment, and our newest member, Will. There's also some really solid Halloween Horror Nights updaters. Check out the Halloween Horror Nights updaters. John, Vic, Neil, Aaron, David, Tristan, Jeremy, and Keegan. Links in the description bar below. As well as my friend James, HHN Updated 1, as well as Matt, HHN Trogdor. My good friend Chris has a shot as well. It is HHN Legacy and the Thrill Seeker Network. Some great content also on YouTube. From Dr. Jimmy, it's Docky Mo, my good friends Tim and Jen at the Tim Tracker. View from the Cheap Seats, my good friend Kyle, as well as my good friend Liz from Disco Lizita. Mark, the Man in the Mala Vest. Zombie Chris, which is Z Keeper 83. And a great character that has a great channel as well. His name is Andrew, and it is listed on the description bar below. So that being said, we will meet again, most likely, a little bit after April 1st, when Dr. Jimmy is going to grace us with his presence for his annual All Secrets Revealed video. So until then, that's all I gotta say about that.